Hi, my name is Lindy Cowling. Welcome to my channel. My website is www.lindycowling.co.uk. My email is info@lindycowling.co.uk. The title of this video today is October Orchestrated. October Orchestrated, or October 2016 Orchestrated. So as those of you that have followed my videos for the last couple of years will know, this is a channel that is very much from the heart. It's a channel all about standing in one's power, going through the process of awakening, going through the process of coming into your heart, love, divine love, ascension. The entry point for this channel, and for me as this channel, to go through that process is via the twin flame union, and that was my entry point to the unified field and unified consciousness. So there are many entry points, many life experiences that have nothing to do with twin flame union that can orchestrate an awakening into one's own heart, into one's own remembrance, into a state of elevated consciousness, real consciousness, pure consciousness. But for the purposes of this channel, this is an experiential channel, and that was my entry point. And I say was, but still is, because once you have continued through a certain process into expanded consciousness, that state of consciousness remains with you, because it's an inner state of consciousness, which I've explained at great length in many of the videos that I've brought out. So the reason I'm explaining this now before I launch into this video, and the reason I've called this video October Orchestrated, is over the last 6 months or so I've been mentioning in videos that there would be a compression of energy until we hit October, and then that energy would change. And because this is an experiential channel, I share from direct experience, direct perception, directly from the experience, usually fully from the heart. Very occasionally, pain body is a little bit more obvious if I've been going through something quite profound, and you can usually see that in my eyes. And I haven't been the only one that's said in their own way that once we hit October it was going to be different, and people have different explanations for this. And for me, I choose only to share from my perception and understanding and experience of it. Personally, I feel that's the best way to share, actually. The best way to, if you want to call it teach, we can call it teach, but the best way to share and help others is through that, because the experiential side of it, you're putting out a frequency or a vibration. Whereas if I were just like quoting from somebody else's work or quoting from a book, it's slightly not the same. It's not quite the embodiment as such. So let's start, as I always do, from the top down, why I've called this October Orchestrated. We are at a pivotal point in this planet's history. We are at a pivotal point, therefore, in humanity's evolution. And the two, of course, are profoundly entwined with one another. If we start from the spiritual and work our way down from the spiritual perspective, from the perspective of spirit, the pivotal point at history that we are now going through, and the pivotal point that we're going through, by the way, has been orchestrated. Sorry, my cat's just coming from the garden, just at that pivotal point, has been orchestrated for quite a number of years before we hit this point, both physically, spiritually, soully. Hasn't just randomly come to this point. But spiritually speaking, timeline speaking, time speaking, the point that we are at now, in many ways, has already happened. It's fait accompli, and the millions of people on this planet in their heart, and Mother Earth, and all the realms and dimensions that assist us and are aware of what's going on here, already know the outcome, because the outcome, in fact, has already happened. So take reassurance and comfort from that, because the way of the heart and humanity making that transition into the heart is completely inevitable and has really already taken place. And it doesn't seem like that when we're down here going through it and looking around us and looking at how many people statistically are in the heart and how many seem not to be. But I can assure you, in terms of energy, everything has gone the right way, and everything is unfolded in the right way. Because we are at this pivotal point, being in the heart is actually, I would say, never have been more crucial in a way than it is now. Or I can align how crucial it was if we talk about Atlantis and Lemuria. I mean, a crucial point at evolution was hit, and those civilizations, choices were made to deviate off from their divinity, and the whole lot was wiped. The whole slate was wiped clean. The pivotal point in humanity we're at now, there are alignments in a way with that. There's an overlap with that, because we are entering the beginning stages to the state of evolution we already had or have in those civilizations in that timeline. And being in the heart and having the portal of the heart open, perceiving through the heart, feeling one's emotions through the heart, seeing through the heart, hearing through the heart, loving through the heart, living through the heart has never been more important, because not only for the vibration and the frequency it puts out for yourself, for your family, for your friends, for your colleagues, for your village, for your towns, for humanity as a whole, because of that vibration, that frequency, but because you have an elevated state of consciousness in the base level rung of the heart and upwards. You have a different state of consciousness, an elevated state of consciousness, a state of knowing where you can discern, and that word is just so pivotal at this moment. You can discern for yourselves, even without really trying, it's an automatic instinct, really what is an illusion and what is reality, what is, quite bluntly speaking, bullshit, and what is the truth. And you can tell that within people immediately around you, but you can also tell that globally. You can tell that in terms of looking at the world stage politically. You can tell that with the financial institutions. You can tell that with any institution you can imagine. Everything. Because you come from an elevated state of consciousness, you are able to, that word again, discern the truth. And this is so vital because probably your entire lives you've been brought up in a set of circumstances, in sets of programming, both through media, the television, the society you were born into, the culture you were born into, the country you were born into, the family you were born into, the schools you went to. Programming has happened from the moment you came out the birth canal, the moment you were born. And when you begin the entry levels, the rungs of the heart, if you like, these are the first stages where you get, for the first time in your lives, to realize the truth of everything. Not just the truth of who you are, which of course is vital, but the truth of everything, the truth of the society, the truth of the culture, the truth of the country, the truth of what is coming out of the television set or the radio, the truth of what you have been drip-fed all your life, the truth of history, which has been bent and distorted out of all shape, the truth of what you're being told. Again, whether that's on a world stage, politically, globally, whether it's on a smaller stage than that. I'm talking the whole way across here, like a stone being thrown in the stream and then the ripples out from that. This goes right the way up to the top and beyond. And why it's so important is because that perception from the heart is everything, because it changes your awareness and your seeing of the truth, your knowing of the truth. Now, when you come to this point of knowing of the truth, I'm not going to say to you again that that is going to be a walk in the park, because it can be quite devastating to realize something that you always believed, or that you had always been told, or the country you were born into that you always felt were the good guys, that there is a different picture to that, and there are distortions to that, and there are different themes running underneath. And we can lock this onto the family, like the family you were born into, the truth of things coming out, or even not coming out, but you suddenly being aware of them. This goes right across the board, and I'm not saying again it's easy, because it's not easy. It's not easy going through that part of the process, but it is absolutely vital. It's not just vital for yourselves to perceive from that level of consciousness and perception, but it's vital for humanity, because the more people that are seeing through the perception of the heart, that are living in the embodiment of divine truth, the embodiment of that knowing, it sends out a sound, again, like a dolphin, like a whale. It sends out a sound, a pitch, a frequency, a sound, and it gives the opportunity for anybody else in your environment, or that you're connected with, or in your homes, in your families, or in your bloodlines, or in your towns, your villages, humanity, goes on and on, expanding. Anyone that's ready in their own state of personal evolution to recognize that and hear that sound, if you like, feel that sound, it gives them the opportunity to open up, and it gives them the opportunity to be discerning and to be questioning and knowing the truth of things. And again, I'm going to say never has it been more vital than this pivotal point now. This pivotal point now, as humanity, we knew we were entering this pivotal point. And when you're going to say to me, what do you mean pivotal point? I mean, there are many, many things happening under the radar which we are not hearing on our world news that is taking place on a daily basis at the moment. And to be quite blunt, and I'm going to be careful how I say this because this is not a political channel and I'm not political. I am spiritual and I am a humanitarian. But if you ask me outright, what am I skirting round here? What am I alluding to? Apart from world changes, natural world changes and natural world events bubbling away nicely under the surface, some of those natural, some of those not natural, some of those, that word again, orchestrated by particular, people involved in orchestrating things, and that can be from anything from causing what looks like natural disasters by the use of sound waves, by the use of weapons really that affect the weather, really can be kind of all this kind of thing. But it can also be to attempting to provoke a world war. Again, there are no surprises here. Some of us have been aware that was on the agenda for a long, long time, and the events that are being, again, orchestrated October, this pivotal month, have been in the planning for many years. And there are many things we're not hearing about on our news. The alternative media is, at the moment, able to get information out, which some of that I'm sure, going from my own feeling and discernment, is accurate. Some of it not accurate. This is where that word discernment come in again. Just because it's coming from alternative media doesn't mean to say it's correct. You have to use your own discernment, your own knowing. But there are many things going on here, and I'm someone that comes from the West, and what I would say here is, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. It doesn't matter where you are in the world, you have to be able to use your own knowing and your own feeling on what is ringing true here and what's not. And again, it's not just for your own selves, but it's that frequency and that vibration that you're putting out. And so there are lots of things going on under the surface. There are forces at work that are promoting a lot of stuff at the moment, a lot of polarisation at the moment. So if you're someone that's really sensitive and empathic, which I'm very sensitive obviously and empathic and very psychic, you may be feeling that significantly at this time. And I'm definitely feeling it significantly at this time, which is it's quite a balancing act, because I can feel that polarisation going on globally. I can feel it empathically and psychically, and even though there's nothing going on that's unexpected that I didn't kind of have an awareness of for a number of years, it's still like being caught in the middle of a tug of war, really, and feeling all the stuff that flows around that. And it's interesting with me, because in some ways, if there is anything that is not quite resolved within your own pain bodies, and if you are empathic and super sensitive as well, and if you're wired into a template, a primary template, such for example as twin flame union, everything like this is intensified, and so you feel it even more. And so for me, since we hit October, I really am, I'm on the teetering on the third round of Dark Night of the Soul now. And I have to laugh here, because I remember the first time on YouTube, I was talking about Dark Night of the Soul, and then I'm thinking, thank God for that, never again, I have to do that again. And then about a year later, another one came around. I think I called it his second Dark Night of the Soul. I thought, well, I'll never have to do that again. And then here we go again. And it's, yeah, in fact, what I would say is each one is different to the one before. But if anything, it's on an even more like level of it. And really, when you think about it, it's because we go layer by layer, and then we just do one lot, we go down, we scoop round again, it's like a spiral shape, and then we go down again, and the sediment at the bottom of the tank. And it's sediment at the bottom of the tank time. So there are elements of that going on, and I'm sure some of you are experiencing the same. And you're picking up the global consciousness and what's going on behind the scenes. You're feeling all that as well. And you know, so this is swirling around, and if there's anything left in you, then that's getting provoked again in a way. But also, really strangely, which came to me before I came on camera, is that I know that in October 2016 that we're in now, if you are ready in your own personal state of evolution and consciousness, you are able to enter another frequency of consciousness, another frequency of energy. And how the mind perceives that, because I know, because this is how my mind is perceiving it, even though I'm intensely spiritual and of the heart, my mind is experiencing it like everything has gone blank. So it's taken me about 2 weeks not to work on working that out. I've been sitting with it. It's been extremely uncomfortable. I can't tell you how uncomfortable. Very, very uncomfortable. And then it just came to me today, which is why I'm on YouTube today and why I haven't been on it for the last 2 weeks. Because I have to have the realisation for myself before I can share it. And I realise that the state of energy I'm at now is I have been effectively acting as a bridge between two levels of energy and helping people cross, actually, in some ways, from old energy into new. That would be a simple way of putting it. And although that is a task I can still perform and do still perform, I have just in the last few weeks been given the opportunity within, felt the opportunity within, to entirely enter new energy, which is a different state of consciousness. Now you think I would be going hallelujah, you know, all the rest of it, dancing around. My head does not perceive it that way, and this is really, it's quite funny when you think about it, because my head is suddenly, because everything's gone blank, it's like a blank slate, everything is being wiped clean. My mind is not at all comfortable with that. My mind is not comfortable with that at all, because I am at that pivotal point myself where you're entering the new, everything being new, totally coming away from the old. And just when I thought I'd come away from the old, it's kind of like the final old, which is really everything else that was left. And of course my mind is not a happy bunny about that. My mind is trying to hold on to the old, hold on to the familiar, hold on to those things. And of course, that tug of war I mentioned earlier, that polarisation that we're seeing globally, that is also happening internally. If you're at that point within your own awareness and your own consciousness at this point in time, where you have that opportunity, if there is anything of your natural humanness left, which I hope there would be, because that's kind of the point of being human, really, you may hit this internal tug of war, and it can present in different ways. It can present in feeling really tired, very emotional, depressed, typical dark night of the soul stuff, you know, really surprising how it presents itself. And when I was a young girl, I was very nervous, mainly due to the background I was brought up in, very violent background. So I was a bit of a nervous wreck, really. And I used to have a lot of panic attacks, which I haven't had for a long time. And I had echoes of that when I went through post-traumatic stress disorder as a result of my connection within the twin flame union. But I haven't had like full panic attacks since I was a teenager until the last 2 weeks, where I've been experiencing that again. It's not been very pleasant, and so I've had to sit down and understand where that is coming from. And again, a percentage of it is not mine. I'm picking up empathically what's going on globally, worldwide, in energy. I'm picking it up again, which is why I've stayed off camera. A percentage of it is mine, and some of it is because we're at this pivotal point in October here, where if those of us that are ready are entering a state of new energy, and how the mind perceives this as shit is like shit. I'm kind of dying here because it's all gone blank. The mind perceives it very differently to how soul and spirit perceive it. Soul and spirit perceive it differently to that. Soul and spirit perceive it as going into a next stage of awakening. Mind sees and feels everything going blank and just feels like it's a death, really. And I think I've talked about death and rebirth on camera before. That was a layer of it, but it was nowhere near as significant as this layer of it. And again, you know, if you think of energy in terms of a spiral and the way energy moves here, we keep revisiting the same points, but a deeper level of them. We go round, boom, we go round, boom, we're going round, we're revisiting, we're revisiting, we're revisiting, over and over again. And actually the levels that we revisit are actually deeper than the levels that we previously went through. So it is an extraordinary time. And again, you know, I know I'm covering a lot of bases here, but what's happening internally with us is definitely being mirrored externally, globally. And so, because we are super sensitive beings, we are feeling the natural energy, but we are also feeling the energy that is orchestrated. And so we have to be discerning. We have to be discerning about what we are being told is happening in our countries, what we are being told is happening in the world. We have to be discerning and feel for ourselves the truth of that. Not just the knee-jerk emotional response to what we're seeing in front of us. Why are millions of refugees displaced all over the world? What's behind it? Who's behind it? Who orchestrated that long ago? Who planned that long ago for mass movement of people like this? And on the humanitarian side of it, all these people that are suffering and dying as a result of that, what triggered that mass movement of people, and what and who is behind it? For sure, not likely to be who we're told is behind it. That's just one example. The images that we see of little children dead, babies dead in the rubble in Syria, little children being carried out of the rubble in Syria, it's a heartbreaking image, absolutely heartbreaking. But again, you have to look behind, why has there been a war in Syria for 5 years? Who's funding it? Who's funding fighting that? You're going to be in for a shock, I can tell you. Who's trying to provoke what? You know, again, if we look on that, I'm not political. You have to be discerning, because if you're discerning and you know the truth of it, people will say, well, if I know the truth of it, what can I individually do to change that? Individually, you can make a huge difference by going into the heart, by having the 360-degree view. Like I say, not just for you, but that you're giving that frequency out to the world. It's your gift to the world. And enough people in that state of consciousness have the discernment for themselves to see what's really happening. And then they have their own empowerment to make changes there. Enough people having that awareness are not going to be accepting of the story that they're being told. I hope this video isn't coming across as too heavy and too negative, and I cannot believe how long I'm speaking again. That's 31 minutes. I didn't intend for it to be this long at all. Because I'm not meaning it to come across heavy, I'm meaning it to come across absolutely truthful and authentic. And I'm drawn to speak this way today because today is the right day to do it and the right time to do it, but also because I feel it's never been a more significant time to be speaking this way. In many ways, where 2012 was built up to be significant in terms of physical changes, I truly feel we're now entering that point now. So long before 2012, I mean, I actually wrote a book, Replay 1122, based on potential events that could happen in 2012. It was a paranormal thriller. It was written as a film, actually. I wrote it as a film. It is on Amazon. I haven't read it for a number of years. It wouldn't be the sort of book I would ever write now, but in 2006, when I was in a 300-year-old farmhouse, bedridden, with illness, that's the kind of book I wrote. When I look back on that information now, much of it actually was, in a way, kind of channeled when I think about it. And in terms of what happened in the years that followed in my own personal life, you know, I can see some of that was laid out there in that book. Point I'm bringing up here is, in that book, the lead characters went back in time and changed the outcome, changed the timelines actually. Like I say, I wrote that in 2006. I truly feel we're at a similar point in history now. And yet, having said all of that, and about our internal state, our external state, that overlapping, the outcome, the overall outcome for humanity as a species and for this planet is, it's a done deal. It's okay, it's good, it goes the way, it's gone the way that it should have gone. So I want to kind of reassure you of that. But the most important really thing you can do now is to really go through your process and really feel your way through that process and really be very, very truthful. That's my cat again. Alright. Really truthful with yourselves. And by doing your own inner process, like I say, it's the knock-on effect of that is you're going to see and feel the reality, both in its most beautiful aspects, but also in its most challenging side of its polarisation, especially globally. You're going to have an awareness of that. And you wouldn't be human if that didn't bring up challenges for you, and you wouldn't be human if it didn't bring up change for you. But that's the point in history that we're in, where we're grown up enough now to deal with that, to handle that in a way. I can't believe I think this again. I think I've just overlapped again and gone on to the longest video I've ever made. Clearly it had to be that long for me to share what I'm sharing. I would say again, I don't feel always it's the information that I'm sharing. I feel it is where that information is coming from and where that vibration is from. Sometimes more the sound of what I'm saying than what I'm actually saying, you know, because it's coming from the heart, it's coming from spiritual energy. I hope that helps. And obviously, I mean, if you are someone that's involved in any of these new templates for humanity, and if you are someone that's coming from the entry point of twin flame union where everything is amplified, but other entry points as well where they're amplified responses to what's going on around us globally. Like I say, that word orchestrated, it was always orchestrated that we hit this pivotal point in history. There's not been a mistake there. It was always orchestrated, you know, by the souls, by spirit. This point that we're going through now was always orchestrated, and the outcome is assured, but to make it easier for yourselves and to allow others to have that easier path through it, the most humane and loving thing you can do is to be in your truth and to give others the opportunity, by being in that truth vibration, to be in the truth themselves. On that note, I will love you and leave you. Thank you if you managed to sit all the way through this. Thank you for having the patience to watch. Thank you for having the patience to listen. And I will be back with you again soon. Thank you. Bye.